It is the Town of Darien Advisory Committee on Sustainability. It is September 11th, 2019. It is 12:30 and we are in room 206, and we're calling the meeting to order at 12:38 p.m. Now, the first item on the agenda is always approving past minutes. But I think we have a problem here because Terry was not at the August special meeting, and I don't think anybody took notes.
No, I wasn't there.
And you weren't there either. So I need a volunteer to watch the videotape of the August meeting and prepare a brief outline of the minutes so that we can file it with the town clerk and respect our FOIA.
What day is that?
Thank you very much. August
If you need help. Oh, it was,
6th, 7th?
It was the 7th.
August
yes.
7th.
Yes, it was the 7th.
Okay, thank you very much for volunteering. We have no meeting minutes to approve today. So, we have a special guest in the room from the DEG, a new co-chair, Amanda Craig. Thank you for joining us. Always, we have a big table, and we always welcome folks that are passionate about the idea of sustainability and figuring out and encouraging Darien to find ways to be more sustainable. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Who's doing minutes today?
Another great question.
Do you want me to?
Do you want to take minutes?
I have my laptop.
Sure. Sounds good. We like volunteers. We like volunteers too.
It's okay.
Yeah, the videotape's great. Terry's a machine. He has them done usually by the end of the meeting.
Right.
So keeps us on task. Item 2 on the agenda, Sustainable CT. We have officially filed our application with Sustainable CT.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, this crew did a lot of work to get that done. It was awesome.
Important though, like it was like really good to kind of like take an inventory of everything that we're doing, because it kind of clarified like where we need to spend more time, you know. I thought it was really insightful.
Which is exactly what we want to talk about today, which is this idea of, okay, we have filed this application. We believe we have accumulated enough points to be certified a sustainable community at their bronze level. There's only 2 levels, bronze and silver currently. Basically there's going to be an open discussion on what did we learn about the process and what do we think is important to what to include in our next steps. My focus is, literally looking at the list of action items, maybe grabbing those ones that we said, we can't do that now, we might as well do that later.
Yeah.
Maybe grabbing ones that you have a personal interest in a subject area that you're passionate about. Or just grabbing ones that seem like, as a town, we really probably should be thinking about something like this and doing it, right? And really pretty quickly, like over the next month, I don't even want to say 2, I'd love to put together, a memo from the Advisory Committee on Sustainability to the Board of Selectmen. It says, briefly, this is what we learned, and here are some recommendations for next steps. And those recommendations, in a timely fashion, could do 2 things. Could be part of our charge for another year, and could potentially be things that require money in a budget, which they're starting to prepare their budgets now, which kind of get loosely approved by the end of the year by Board of Selectmen, and then they go through the process. So if we want to spend money a year and a half from now, you got to start today.
Right.
Host an electric car charging station, right? Like there's one on my list, right? That seems like a pretty, yes, we should have, maybe more than one, but we could start with one. That, maybe it requires some money or someone to say, yeah, that's an important maintenance item. Speaking of the devil. Run away! Run away.
And he appears.
We said the word money and you walked in.
Yeah,
Thank you.
If you had said dirt, I have plenty of that. Money I don't have a whole lot of.
no. Brown gold.
You want to get rid of that dirt?
I'm getting rid of it right now.
Craig, I just want to get clarity.
Yeah.
The report that you want to present to Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
is that a summary in addition, is it a summary of, okay, this is what we submitted,
Yeah.
and these are the next steps?
Yeah, I would say I think it would be helpful for them to know which categories that we applied for points under, and generally why, or how, and, but then take the next step of, here are basically here are past accomplishments that we were able to document, and here are opportunities
Okay.
for the future in terms of other things that we can be looking into. So with that wordy introduction from the chair, I will open it up to each of you to say, so maybe we'll just go around the room and start with your top one or two or three, and see where we end up. Kathy, you want to start?
I think the top thing, one of the things that impressed me most was in working specifically with one of the departments when I worked with Human Services. And I found that in having direct conversations and explaining, spending a little time one-on-one, it was really great to see the ideas, the light bulbs go off. And it seemed to me to be what this is all supposed to be about.
Yeah.
That it gave a framework to people that work here and support the community to define programs they want or things they do already, and kind of think about it in terms of being a sustainable community. Obviously, with Human Services, they're very focused on supporting the needs of the members of the community. So this meshed nicely. But I thought that was kind of an example of what this is supposed to be all about. And kudos to them, because they kind of ran with it and had an idea and actually created something that hadn't existed in the town. So that to me was a real positive.
To restate, the priority would be that we focus on, taking this out of an insular action by a group of volunteers that achieved a gold star, and try to have the conversations necessary to have the kind of this way of thinking boil down into how the town does
How
its
the
business.
town works within a department or among
Yeah.
departments or with external organizations.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a small but great example of, I think, what Sustainable CT is hoping to accomplish in any community, which is connecting
Yeah.
groups
Yeah.
within the
Like,
town.
start the conversation and,
Yes.
try to say, well, what if we actually tried to do something, instead
Exactly.
of just
Can I-
talk about it.
Can I ask you what they
Yeah.
created that wasn't?
Yeah.
They have clients in the Department of Human Services that have needs for things that they provide with, counseling services. They have things like they have a closet of medical supplies, dry goods. And one of the things that came out of it was that we were doing some work with obviously the dump and the recycling center. And the connection was that there are a number of people in town who do not have access to the dump for financial reasons. And we were able to find a way that they could take advantage of the recycling center, both to bring things to, but also to be able to use the swap shop, which can be of significant importance to a family in need. So that was something that was developed, approved by the town.
Wow.
I think there were 5 families that were immediately, 4 or 5 families that were immediately able to take advantage of that. And it has to be managed by the Human Services Department. But it was something in town, and the idea of the Sustainable CT is that all members of the community have access to all services. And that is what sustainability means, beyond just environmental protection or reducing waste. It is about everybody having access to what the community offers, and that was an example
That's
where the
awesome.
idea was something that we were able to define, and make it happen in a short turnaround time. There were a number of things of that nature that happened. They were also at the same time working with the state on access, we didn't put this in the application, to coupons for seniors to use the farmer's market. And they were able to roll that out. And it was not part of the application, but a simultaneous effort that was going on.
Neat. Awesome.
Once again, when you
Yeah.
start the conversation, when you have the ideas, then it just happens.
Things-
And we don't
things
need,
go on.
and
Great.
part of this is, I think we got caught up in the game, right?
Points.
Which is, like, how do we get another point? How do we get another 5 points? How do we get another 10 points? But the goal is not to play the game, right? The goal is to become more sustainable, right?
Exactly.
So we
And
want to,
Cliff worked with Senior Center and Human Services in the same vein that we were able to apply for points with, that had to do with the farmer's market and getting seniors have access to transportation if needed. So there were dialogues
Wow.
that happened under the part of Sustainable CT, which had to do with access to services. My other major observation as a longtime citizen of the town and infrequent user of the website was that finding information was very difficult. And that if we're trying to provide a means to share information with the public, I see opportunities, whether it's through our own sites related to this committee, or whether it's more broadly, because there's a lot of information that is there, but it isn't always easily available. So I think communication is
I
an
agree,
area.
I agree
Yeah.
completely. I think one of the things I was talking about earlier was, even for people involved in certain facets of town government, they have no idea what other people are doing,
Yeah.
in other rooms. And a small percentage of that body of work is available in a findable
Correct.
fashion on the website, right?
And yes, and if you extend that to the wonderful organizations in town, and I think this is the third broad point, in some communities, a lot of this application and the actions are driven internally at City Hall. And we, with a small town hall relative to Hartford or some other place, rely on a lot of nonprofit and volunteer organizations that support us, the environmental group, the nature center, the library,
And trust,
businesses, the
yeah.
Gardener Center with the
Yeah.
pollinator pathway. And so there's the idea of, it's all out there, and I know the green team meets quarterly, but the idea of knowing the right hand, knowing what the left hand doing, I think that's the third thing, but it falls back into the second thing, which is
Improve
communication,
communication.
which goes back to the first thing of what our town
It's all related.
staff
yeah.
are doing. I think it was a great way to start, and to really, as you had said before the meeting, or at the beginning, open up the covers, look under the hood,
Yeah.
So,
and see what's going on.
Quick summary, then we'll move to the next person.
That's
But it's kind of push down that conservation to the folks that really are doing the nuts and bolts of running the town and providing services to the town. Improve communications and access to information, both within the town's sphere, but then also within all of these kind of supportive nonprofits.
And really wonderful things that are going on around here.
Yeah, there are. It struck me when Jeremy did his presentation on the housing needs assessment to the Board of Selectmen. And, kind of the tough question at the end from, Kip was, well, what do we get out of Sustainable CT? So we did all this work and we submitted this application, what does that mean for us? There was a timely email yesterday that says you have access to $25,000 to help with your sustainability ideas and projects, so that was good. I didn't have that back in August when the question was asked, but I put the two together immediately because Jeremy's report highlighted a lot of advantages and differences that Darien has as compared to the 140 other towns in the state of Connecticut. And like 117 out of the 140 have grand lists that are reduced year over year and year over year and year over year, which creates this tax increase spiral that is impossible to get out of. And Darien is not one of those towns, right? And so, but why? I mean, yes, we have access to the financial markets of New York, and yes, we have great schools, but I think it's also the literally thousands of volunteers that are doing a lot of these things to make the town a more sustainable community. So,
I agree.
I've been thinking about that answer because I didn't have a good one a month ago, so.
You guys get up at public comment period at the Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen.
I finally got
I
it.
thought about that.
Cliff, thoughts?
So, one of the things that I was sold on was that this is a useful tool for the town in marketing, that we are certified. And, because I was asking the same question, you know, I think all of this is great, but is it worth going through the hoops and things, or should we just focus on what really is important to us and just do these things on our own and not worry about the points and the
Yeah.
sustainability?
Yeah, use it as a framework, not play the game.
Yeah, exactly. But I was convinced, no, and Jamie made the point
Yeah.
at the special session you had on water,
Mhm.
that this is helpful for selling our town
Yeah.
to potential residents and potential businesses and
Mhm.
things of that sort. So I buy that, and I would be inclined to say we should be going for silver if we see the path, and that we need to get an earlier start, I think, like as soon as possible. And I think there are sort of two different kinds of categories of things. One is just recording what's going on, because I don't think we got that all done. I think
agree.
there's still
I agree.
an awful lot that we could have put in there if we'd had the time. And then the other is to do new things that we haven't been doing before, and that's certainly something we want to be doing. So, you know, I think it's worth working on it some more, but recognizing we've
Yeah.
got two different things.
I'm imagining, this certification is good for 3 years. And because there's certain things coming down the pipe that are going to take time, that, we don't bend over backwards to try to file again next year or the year after. Basically, we set a 3-year timeline to get from bronze to silver, and gain more momentum in this push. That's what I'm imagining in terms of taking our time to be able to do it.
One other thing that ties in with this is the assignment of responsibility. I mean, this was kind of a rush, and it was, maybe so-and-so can do this, maybe so-and-so can do that. I mean, we would be just so much better off if, yes, this person's going to lead on that, this person's going to lead on the other.
Mhm.
We may need more people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to continue, back to the first point, it doesn't have to be the people sitting at this table, right?
Right.
Like, we want Ed and Jeremy and other folks to be participating in this, not, again, to needlessly play the game, right? But to have that just shift of how are we providing our services anyway, and I could provide them in this way, or I could provide them in that way, so I'll do this.
Or are we looking at electric vehicles? And that's a very simple kind
Yes,
of thing that
yes.
you could be looking at over a window of 2 to 3 years, not even
Yes.
necessarily to purchase
Should we
them,
get-
but to assess them.
Is there a vehicle that makes sense, that could be electric, that makes?
What
you know,
over time, would that make sense or not? Just do
Should we
that
have
analysis.
that's me. Should we have a charging station somewhere, like things like this?
Yeah.
You're managing the parking lots, and is that something that folds into the way we're managing the parking lots, Being able to think about these things while you're doing your job anyway. That's kind of the thought.
Exactly.
Not to single you out, but you are the only one here.
Thank you for coming.
Showed up on time.
I think those are great. And I think the recording thing, that's where the game is, right? Like, because you would say, oh, well, we're certainly doing this, and you kind of dig into it, and you're like, oh, you're supposed to do these 2 other things too to fully qualify. We'll do that later, right? So it would be good to identify, what are those 1 or 2 things
Right.
that could have unlocked another
Yes.
category here, and who should be
Yes.
doing that. Karen?
I mean, briefly, just to piggyback off what Kathy said about, collaborating with other groups. When I was doing the water conservation program, I just found it was like so easy to ask other groups to collaborate with us. For example, we got both the Darien Nature Center and the Darien Pollinator Pathway to be co-sponsors. If the Darien Nature Center had been open, that evening, they were closed for 2 weeks because they were getting their floors redone, we could have had it there. So I mean, it was just like, just by asking, other groups were willing to help. So, and they, you know, the Dairy and Pollinator Pathway helped staff the event, which was good. So that was one thing. In the areas that I worked on, like the solid waste and so forth, I think that there are areas where a lot of people want to and have been asking for additional opportunities to recycle. So I thought, you know, today might not be the day to talk about those things, but I just think that there are 2 or 3 additional types of materials that we can recycle that wouldn't be, you know, like a huge...
Onerous on us, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We just kind of need to... Ed's scowling at me.
I thought we got it all.
Yeah, there's a few other things. I won't mention.
We've made a lot of
yet.
progress, Ed. Heading in the right direction.
Really little things, not big things.
Right. And then just, you know, again, to sort of take the point that you just made about, like, there are like little things that if only we could, you know, dot that, you know, cross that T and dot that I, we could have gotten 10 extra points.
Yeah.
I know that in some, like, in the food scrap area, for example, like, if only we had like an education program to, you know, educate residents about food reduction in the first place, we could have gotten extra points
Yeah,
for that.
yeah.
That's something that, you know, if I had, you know, an
If
extra
you knew that
week-
during the process,
Yeah.
it would have been done.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. I mean, you know, if I had had like an extra week or so, I could have easily done that. But I think that there are lots of opportunities to do that. I also just think, you know, like, you know, working with the Dairy and Environmental Group and, you know, especially, you know, trying to, you know, institute some of these things in the schools is really important. And I just think that that's something that's just going to take time, effort, and, you know, additional, you know, hands on board. So, but I you know, it was a lot of work, but I really found that, it was just like an inventory, and it really was illuminating to be able to see all the stuff that we are doing and all the potential areas where we can make improvements. And like Cliff said, I think I think that being designated as sustainable, getting certification from Sustainable CT is important because it does attract potential residents, it does attract businesses, but it also gets us respect from some of our peer communities. I mean, I routinely get emails and phone calls from people in other communities about, you know, how did you start your food scrap program? How do you do this? How do you do that? And as a matter of fact, I just wanted to mention tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, Planet New Canaan, which is sort of a hybrid program of like our environmental group and our committee, they asked me, and if anyone else wants to join me, they're welcome to, just to kind of talk about what our committee is doing. I think they are particularly interested in starting a swap shop. So if anyone wants to join me, I'm doing that at 10 o'clock on tomorrow morning. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Christine?
I cannot join you tomorrow, unfortunately.
Okay.
Sorry, I wish I could.
So what time, where, what, and where?
10 o'clock, and I'll email you the location. I think it is at the New Canaan Nature Center.
I really just want to dive deeper into the stuff that I was working on to start with that needed just more time.
Yeah,
So,
like the specifics, which ones?
3.2, the support arts and creative culture. 2.10, facilitate invasive species education. 2.5, create the natural resource and wildlife inventory. 3.4, provide an arts and culture program.
Can you,
Sorry, I can email it to you.
I can type really fast, my kids compliment me, but not that fast.
And then 2.9, the manage woodlands and forests, because they all
So
just
I will
needed
do that.
more
Yeah.
time.
2.5, create a natural resource and wildlife inventory.
Yes.
Uh,
2.10, 2.5, 3.2.
I'll just read it from off of that.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'll
that's
send you
Or-
fine. Okay, that's fine.
That's what I would like to do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like hearing those specifics because again, well, we are going to be involved because we're the only people that are going to help get other people involved, right? So any task item you take on, you have to feel somewhat engaged by it, right? And so if those are things that are kind of speaking to you, then it's a great place for you to start and say, well, you know, am I supposed to talk to Park and Rec? Am I supposed to talk to, who's maintaining our woodlands? Who's maintaining our parks? Who's maintaining,
I started peeling the onion with
Yeah.
a lot of these, and it
Yeah.
just needs more time.
Yeah, exactly. Just
And
needs more
I
time.
think with yours, it's fair to say that some may even circle back, as you said, to the school system, because there are some things that if they're youth-related, there's another huge
Yes.
part of our government that we
Yes.
didn't even
We didn't even
communicate
try.
right now.
We didn't even try.
Right.
Our community, our
Yes.
town, our resources, our funds,
Yes.
for the
Yeah,
school system.
almost a bigger part, land and, yeah, budget. Thank you. So I went kind of specific like Christine did, and thinking about a sustainable purchasing program. And just, putting out a yardstick that says, here's the types of things we're gonna purchase and here's the types of things we're gonna avoid purchasing. I had the 2.9 through 2.11, which was the managed woodlands and invasive species management and green grounds maintenance. I had 5.4, support zero emission vehicle deployment. Ed, if it makes sense. 6.1 was the track energy use thing that Beth was working on that we never kind of got to the bottom of. And I think it's just important to kind of keep going. 6.4, I finally figured out how to do the summary of all of the solar we have and the solar in the pipeline.
6.4?
Yeah, and so I forgot, I don't have my email in front of me, but I think with the installed systems, 5 to 6% of the power that the town of Darien uses as a municipality is coming from those rooftops, which is great.
Have they been turned on, Oh. Whoops.
Doesn't sound like it,
Okay.
It's later, isn't it?
which is a whole other
Yeah.
issue.
I got an update on it.
What is that traffic
Okay, thank
report
you.
called? Is it the traffic that Beth worked on for a year?
Oh, no, that's a track energy use, 6.1.
Okay.
And there were 3 projects that were planned on school buildings. Those have effectively been canceled for various reasons.
All of them?
Yes. And so getting back to the Board of Ed, and, they have a lot of rooftop. Anyway, said simply, I think we can get to 10%. But it's gonna take some new roofs, which will happen over time, and some political will. But I would love to get to 10% solar. I guess double our capacity if we want a tag item. 8.2 was grow sustainable and affordable housing options. And that's really a tracking item, because I believe with Leroy, which wasn't in the 2018 data, Town Hall Homes, which is going to be finished end of next year maybe, and some of these other development projects providing affordable components, that we just have to track that number over time, because I believe we're going to see increases. That was one of the really cool things from the housing needs assessment, is the amount of affordable housing that Darien has added over a 10-year or so period in comparison to our peer towns. We're really ahead of the curve actually on trying to do something about it. 7.2, which goes back to the beginning of this conversation, which is provide effective communications. And then 7.5 is in your neck of the woods, Ed. Again, it's just a make sure we're doing it right kind of thing, which is report materials management, data, and reduced waste. So I know DEP came out with some new requirements for things we're supposed to be tracking and reporting. I think I saw an email on that. And so just kind of making sure we are continuing to track and report the right things. And I don't know how to answer that question today, but that's again. So that was my short list of items. So
I'm sorry.
a question to mechanically take the next steps here. So how do we get from what we just said to a document that starts to get turned into something formal that we can hand a written copy into the Board of Selectmen and talk about at one of their meetings in, say, October?
I think it goes back to what Cliff said, which is that, different people have to take ownership of different areas.
I think this actually comes before that, because I think you're talking about the overarching,
Yeah.
we need a time-phased plan, basically, saying,
Maybe this
at
is
such and such a date, we're going to know which ones we think we can go for and that need to be considered. And, it's like a project management thing. And it would lead to that next, I think. But, you'd be identifying all the points you think you can go for, things that are just recording versus things that require either investment or approvals or changes of procedures around here. It'd be an overall plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, quite frankly, I think we're starting with these minutes. and morphing that into a document that we can share, basically that summarizes the important points.
I guess I would like to stay up very high before we get, as you're saying, there's a sort of
Yes,
broad spectrum.
yes.
And I think the high has to be really educating. We won't know about certification for at least a month. And then there will be, assuming we are certified, there's an event early December. So I would like to try to tie into that certification notification what we did,
Yeah.
broadly, as we'd said, what we really worked on, and then how we would like to share the news of that certification, because back to communication, this happened,
Yes.
Is it to a meeting of selectmen, is it a meeting of different organizations, senior men's club, the nature center, whatever, how are we going to take this information, the realtors, how are we going to use what we've just learned, what's just happened in order to communicate that to the town. So I want that to be part of how we present. And then the next steps, the caution I have.
Well, PR and marketing
It's
plan.
the PR and marketing plan. The caution I have is this, they're going to probably add above bronze, silver to gold, and they may change next year. So you can't.
Yeah, they can move
can't
more.
really plan much before what they
Yeah.
announce in January for 2020.
Take things off, they're going
Right.
to add things.
And then you
Right.
could look at 2020, even if you didn't do it, and start working to that. But it's a moving target, but I think broadly the
But so
idea
kind of Cliff's
is.
point, don't get hung up in necessarily defined details just yet in terms of, adding up the points, and think more broadly about, well, they're going to be in these categories.
In the parks,
And if
in
we-
the schools,
If we
with
push in these
vehicles,
categories,
in
we're
the-
going to be
in the
well
recycling
positioned.
center, where are we doing these
Yeah.
things? And using those categories as ideas, because the to-dos may change a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would want to be able to not only provide a document, but provide an explanation to the selectmen and possibly at the RTM. I'd like to be able to have the members of the town know what this was.
Would you
what we
be willing
accomplished.
to start the piece that is, what did we do?
Yes.
Like, what did we file under,
Yes.
where did we qualify?
Yes.
And
Broad level
basically, this is where
documentation.
we were able to document our accomplishments.
And I think to the question that you said was asked by a select person, what do we get out of it? I think
We need
that
to have
the
an
answer is.
And that needs to be written down.
Look at the things going on
Yes.
that are good for
Yeah.
every member of this
The
community.
Tree Conservancy, the Beautification Commission, the Land Trust, like.
The water conservation story was fascinating.
Yeah.
And that information gets shared. People are using the dump, whatever they all are. There's a lot of stuff. This is how.
It's hurting
much
our
all-
budget on the sewer, but anyway.
Yeah, so, okay, so yes, I'm willing to take a look at the part of this is what we did. These are the themes and the areas that this many participants in the
Okay,
town
so
are
let's
doing.
start cobbling this thing together.
Yeah.
You're going to kind of look at this is what we just did.
Yes,
We'll also look at, and anyone can help on this one, which is,
anyone can help on this too.
yeah, what do we get out of it, right? What do we
Right,
do we
yeah.
think is in it for the town of Darien?
Those can be
Yeah.
bullet points, emails
Yeah.
that can all get,
So I think that's a reasonable question to ask, and I think we should have, thoughtful answers. And then I'll take a look at the minutes when Laura forwards them to me. And,
thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
maybe
So Kathy, are
the
you
future-looking
suggesting that
part.
we present to the Board of Selectmen after we find out if
It
we?
might be most appropriate when we
Yeah,
have
the
it.
tough part I'm having
So we're
is that.
thinking November
But
instead of
budgeting.
October?
Yes, the budgeting, right, if we don't start sooner than later, and I can talk to Jamie about that, like, if we have, from what we've done already, and this can be in phases, right, from what we've done already, are there 3 things in here that we say, oh, these are totally low bars, we should totally do them, please consider them when you're thinking about the budget
Absolutely.
this year?
We,
you know.
we plan to be certified. I guess I was
Yeah.
stepping
Yeah.
beyond
Yeah.
that to,
Yeah.
we have
We
been
should be.
certified.
Yeah.
What do we do with that news?
Yeah.
You know?
To Carolyn's point, when you had said you wanted to be ready to present to Board of Selectmen in October, but Kathy felt like, big picture and not getting muddled in the details, is it more November? Is that
Is,
is
How does-
that
but
based
maybe
upon
Ed, you can
everybody's-
shed some light on how the budgeting process works. When do your draft budgets go to Kate?
December 7th last year.
Okay.
Year before that was December 15th, year before that it was December 28th, so they've been squeezing us closer and closer to Thanksgiving every year.
Yeah, and so the farther, well, it's not impossible to get stuff inserted after that point, but usually that's the point where things start getting cut.
So I think there's some wiggle here of October, November as to what we know.
But look, it's a process, things come in and out, and I get it, but if we want the Board of Selectmen or Jamie to provide some direction to the departments that they control and say, hey, is there a way that this fits somewhere, then we should do that sooner than later.
And sooner, and
Yeah.
you're right, that can happen prior to the actual announcement. I think
Yeah.
we're pretty darn sure that we met the criteria.
Yeah, okay. Does that clarify that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We have other agenda items today, unless there's any questions or concerns about our conversations so far on sustainable CT. We'll move on. Do our fresh eyes have anything to add from your perspective
I'd
on
love
the
to
discussion
see
you heard?
your cover there.
Yes, so you can start looking at it while you're,
Thank you.
the rest of the meeting, I'll get it back, but,
I'll take a picture.
do you have a hard, one of these you didn't bring?
I didn't bring my,
Yep.
I might have one, let me look.
I have one.
Didn't bring my bag.
Oh, there's it,
My
oh, this
only
is the last
one.
one. Well,
So I'll take a
at least
picture.
this one,
Thank
Michael.
you.
is Kathy giving an update?
The other-
at the September 23rd RTM meeting?
No, I guess we'll start to pull it together.
Oh, yeah, no, we gotta cover that one.
Yeah,
We gotta cover that one.
that's what I
yeah,
thought
thank
we
you.
were
Giving an
talking
update
about.
on the September 23rd?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that one right now, hold on. You can go to the Sustainable CT website, and once you get kind of used to it, it's a superly well-organized website, and kind of see all that stuff.
Great.
And drill down to, like, what are the sub-actions, and then the
Yeah.
requirements for the sub-actions. It's really well-designed, and they
Yeah.
have a lot of money.
It was a
put
little
into it.
intimidating at first,
Yes,
but once
yeah.
you start, and
Working with
especially-
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially if you look at like how some of the other towns responded to a question,
Yeah.
you kind of see, it's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
The other
Like a
thing is, the
puzzle.
website does provide a lot of announcements of grants and seminars and things like that,
Yeah.
that some are more appropriate to our community than others. The farming ones may not be as appropriate
Yeah.
as water
Yes.
conservation
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that.
So item 2B on the agenda, Seth Morton called me yesterday and asked me to appear before the RTM on September 23rd, which is kind of their big kickoff meeting for the year, to give them a summary of what we're doing.
Good.
I cannot be there.
Oh,
I have a hearing in Greenwich for my paid job that I have to be at.
You want to do it another night?
I said, do you want me to get a proxy, or do you want me to come in October? And he said, I want you to get a proxy.
Oh, okay.
So I am looking for a volunteer to appear before the RTM and give them an update on sustainable CT.
Anybody that wants to join me, anyone that wants to come,
I am.
I've gone when other people have talked.
So.
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
don't.
obviously.
And I'll run it, we'll
Yeah,
work out what it
yeah.
needs to contain and
Yeah,
how long. how
I would
many
focus on
minutes.
5 minutes,
Five.
or 5 or 10 minutes. I'll ask for Seth's guidance on time, but, they have a lot of information to consume at this
Right.
meeting. And
So,
this is
yes,
a
very,
piece of
very
it.
short. Do they require
yeah,
handouts or
this is,
on
you
the
know.
screen or just words?
Picture's worth a
Yeah.
thousand.
Yeah.
Well, pictures, so I think they require just words, but having a one-page handout is always helpful that they could put in the packets, and,
Okay.
bullet points or whatever. But I can hook you and Seth up, and
Okay.
you guys can figure it out from there. But I think, distilling this last 35 minutes, into a page or less is probably a
Thank
good start.
goodness Laura was taking.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you can
This
cut
is,
paste.
this is what we,
Or get her to do it.
Craig.
This is what we've done, this is why we think it's important to Darien,
Uh,
and this is
April.
where we think we might be going.
Yeah.
Right, there's the three, that's how I
Yep.
would approach it.
Okay.
Craig, in full disclosure, I was the one who suggested that.
Oh, okay.
You come to
Yeah.
RTM, because I had asked Seth to distribute the water conservation survey to the RTM members.
Yeah.
And there was some question about what it means to be applying for certification from Sustainable CT, so I made that suggestion,
Okay.
so.
I
you can-
would, if I was free, I would be there with bells on, but
Okay.
I'm not.
I think it's very worthwhile for the RTM
Yeah.
members to hear, and the general public via, television, it's Channel 79.
Communication, we're
Yes,
talking about.
absolutely.
Take the opportunities when they're for us. Okay, so that's 2B. 3, recycling. Food scrap recycling. Kit sales, back on the agenda.
Yeah.
So we have some kits to sell.
We
probably
do.
have 180 or so, or 60, or I don't know how many, but a bunch.
Yeah, we probably have about 160.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been moving through Ed's office.
Oh, yeah.
I bring them in groups of 6 to 10 every couple of weeks, and they are moving. I had also got in touch with one of the owners of Good Wives and asked if we could set up a table at the farmer's market, and I was told that that was a great idea, and he said, of course, the farmer's market is only on Wednesdays. Maybe it would be more productive on a Saturday near the door to Stop and Shop. Let me know. So we have, opportunities.
Those options.
Yeah, so, maybe 2 hours on a Saturday morning in front of Stop and Shop. And, just I think at this point, we've kind of saturated, we had last year sort of saturated that 9 to 12.
It's Saturday at the dump.
Yeah, so I think maybe a little
Recycling center.
bit later on a Saturday at the dump, and maybe, farmer's market on Wednesday for a few hours, and, Stop and Shop. I think we just need to try a couple of different locations.
What
And
time?
while the weather's nice, we should do it.
What time do you usually, were you there at the dump?
We were there early.
9 to 12 usually.
Yeah. Yeah, 9 to 12. I think maybe even 8. I think we were even there at 8 o'clock.
I think we need those little things that go in the ground, what are, the little.
Yeah.
Kit sales
Flyers,
today.
and then
Kit
we'll-
sales today. Throw it out on Ledge Road.
I was
The
going to
grassroots
ask you
marketing
about that.
signs.
Yeah, exactly.
Those
Because-
little
New
cardboard.
publication.
Yeah, the
Visual.
little
Yeah.
political signs, but
Yeah.
they say something
Yeah.
else. We should
I'm
get
thinking
some of
like cute
those.
ones, like got food waste, selling food
Right.
waste recycling kits today at blah, 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 or wherever.
Yeah.
We also need to address selling bags somewhere else in town. It has to be done somewhere on a Saturday, because I have people complaining because they work all week
Ah.
and they want a place to get their bags. And is it possible, like we say, checks only, and you have them at right when you drive into the town dump, or is it possible we get partner with the
We could
library?
probably get the library to sell them.
And if we say checks only, then it is, in that way, we wouldn't have to worry about cash.
And we got a record of,
Yeah.
who was buying what.
Yeah.
Was there
Um,
any conversation with Palmer's or,
To actually carry them.
No, I haven't asked.
I'm just wondering, Palmer's or Trader Joe's?
Okay, so there's a lot of good ideas bouncing around, so let's hone them in on getting something done. So I like the idea of asking the library if they're willing to sell the compostable bags. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Who wants to?
Library?
Yeah, someone want to reach out to Sally? She's still there?
We can ask Sally.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to ask Sally.
And why not, what would postage be on one of, like a roll? I mean, couldn't we
Just
charge
mail 'em.
postage and mail them? I mean, we do all of our dump stickers online. It'd be so easy just to go in and order a roll, 2 rolls, 10 rolls. Or just make it a 10 roll.
But then they
mail.
have to package it up.
Yeah,
and-
they do.
yeah.
Carolyn and I
Amazon
do that.
DVW. You want to run a fulfillment center?
On Amazon or.
A what? A fulfillment center.
Yeah.
A fulfillment center.
Fulfillment center. You're fulfilling orders.
I don't think it would be
Just gonna
that
sit out
large.
front of the town hall and sell them on Saturdays.
I'm going to newspapers, lining my bin with
Yeah,
newspapers.
Yeah.
and just not even using those bags.
Yeah.
Those bags disintegrate before I can take them out half the time.
I know.
You know, the cool thing I noticed is that my garbage can, right, now that the food is not in there, I've gone back to using paper bags in there.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
How?
there's nothing.
Because there's nothing wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, you can use a brown paper bag instead of compostable.
Is it-
bags.
If you have any.
Yeah.
You have, yeah, that's a good
One
point.
But if we're all using reusable bags, we're
Yeah,
not collecting a
right.
lot of those either.
That's true.
One last idea, is there a way that you can have something outside? It's like, almost like on a.
A vending machine or
No, no,
something?
a vending machine, or hey, put your check in, grab the roll of
Honor
bags.
system.
On
Yeah,
an honor
yeah.
system.
That's not gonna work.
Like
No.
that, yeah.
No, are
Yeah.
you kidding? Are you,
gonna
look at
say.
Ed. And we
No,
had-
really, you would be surprised.
Seriously?
at-
You would
yes.
be, we
Yeah.
had the
Shocking.
bungee cord stolen
Shocking.
off our food scrap bins, and we had where they were collecting plastic bags, correct
Someone
me
just
if I'm-
took a whole garbage can.
Someone stole the garbage can. So now they had to literally bolt it down.
I'm
And
like, this
someone
is
tried to
Darien, let's
take
do the honor system. You
Smoke
tried to
detector
tell
collection.
us
Oh, yeah, because that's a
Yeah.
nice little
Put the
plastic
money
tub.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we can't have the honor system, sorry, not for.
Very sad.
Wow.
It is sad.
Wow.
So, talk to Sally, see if the library is willing to do it, especially on Saturdays, one. Two, do you want to put together a list of, if we're going to do 4 kit sale days
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in October, this is when we should do them and where we should do them?
Okay.
And then we can start talking about volunteers?
Sure, can do a
Um,
schedule of that.
Because it's easy to say like, oh, I can do it on the
Volunteers
10th, I can't do it on the
get one of
3rd or
those.
whatever.
Yeah, and
Don't tell Jamie I have a bunch of her signs from
just put
from
something
2
over.
elections ago. I'll just slap
Yeah,
a
no, if you
sticker
get-
on
no,
there.
yeah, exactly.
But see,
I mean, I've got the whole thing that
Right,
goes in
just
the
a
ground.
cardboard.
Right, but we have to have the poster that goes on it.
Just
Well, I
your
have the
poster board.
poster. I have the poster and the little
Wait,
metal
but
things.
cover it
A
with
food
new-
scrap
We're
poster.
just
Gonna
gonna
cover it. No, it's not a food scrap.
You're going to
No,
make
but
one.
that's what I'm
You're going to
saying.
make one.
We
You're gonna
may
make
get
one.
to make one.
Yeah.
You and I can make one.
But we need, okay, we'll discuss that offline.
Okay, so you'll figure out how to do that too.
Hand done is fine.
That's
What
great.
about
somebody can make a
trunk or
sticker out
treats
of it.
coming up at Tokenique? And I know people probably don't want to come and take a bin, but
No, they don't.
it's
No,
such a
we-
great opportunity
We
to
did that
try
at
to get
Henley
it out.
Happening. I was
Yeah.
there for 5 hours, I sold 5
nothing.
kits,
Okay.
so.
Not
They could
very
fit a lot of
good.
candy in it. I'll do that.
How funny.
Food scrap for
Does it
Halloween.
get the word out that these things exist and this is how what our community's doing?
We try, I mean, we
Yeah, maybe.
always need improvement on that, but.
You're
you know.
absolutely right that, I mean, really any community organization, Rotary Club, Lions Club, you could go to and you could talk and say, oh, by the way, we're doing this. But we get, I think it's the balance of volunteer hours
Right.
and trying to,
Because there's such a
achieve what we're trying to
mass that
achieve.
goes
Yeah.
through there.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see more on that. I always keep Swap Shop on the agenda because things come up over time. I haven't heard anything recently yet. Everything, to your knowledge, functioning fine over there?
So far, yes.
Which to you is no news is good news, right?
No news is good news.
Usually. The other item I keep on the agenda, just to get updates on, is the police station, and are we making any progress on
Yeah, we're-
efficiency
We're
improvements?
actually getting prices to change over their management system right now, so.
Okay.
And at the same time, we're making some of the upgrades recommended by the company we had hired to go and evaluate and recommission the systems. So
Awesome. Well,
We're doing that right now.
are you, the nature of their recommendations, are you hopeful that they have identified inefficiencies that can be improved?
It's funny, that's the same question I asked them when they were presenting it. If they've found anything that we could,
That was
grab
actionable, that would
onto.
get results?
There were a couple things. There were some hardware issues out there where things were locked open or locked closed, and
Yeah.
they hadn't been repaired properly. Those things we were finding. Others were just balancing the system throughout the building and getting rid of some of the, energy efficiency items that control 3 or 4 rooms to now, adding in more where you can control 1 room at a time.
More granular, yeah.
We have to break them down a little bit further than that because of the way they use the building.
Yeah.
24/7, they're in different offices.
Yeah.
One guy was in the office during the day, they would be fine, but the guy at night was getting, either he was freezing or he was too hot.
Yeah.
So those things, we have to manage those a little bit better.
Yeah, okay. I guess the proof is going to be the pudding, really, once you,
As soon as we get our price back, that's gonna
Yeah.
be the shock. It's gonna be over $50,000 to change that system over.
but I think that, isn't the energy bill like $100,000 a year?
What?
Isn't the energy bill like $100,000 a year for that
It's a little
bill?
over that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you could, well,
There'll be some savings.
Yeah.
We're not shooting for that right now. We're actually trying to get that building to
just function properly.
just function properly.
Yeah.
I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Then backing off in areas where you think you can make some savings.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything under marketing?
So I actually, just because I saw that, because we never really talk about this that much, I just like did a review. I wanted to see how many posts have I done in the past 5 years and how many times, so almost 800
You are a
individual-
machine.
But that's not, that's not even counting like if I retweet something or if I post an article, but those are like.
Those are original content.
Original content,
800
original
posts.
photos.
Wow.
Very occasionally, I'll repeat something like, the
Twitter?
site.
Twitter or Facebook?
Instagram
That's
and Facebook.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Facebook. So I'm doing that consistently. It's basically 3 times a week. It's not reaching everyone, obviously, because everyone doesn't seem to know what we're doing. I do tweet. Everything that I put on Facebook, I also tweet. So it's Instagram, I haven't been able to set up because it will not allow me, at least I don't know how to get a .gov email set up with it. It just will not recognize it. And I'm reluctant to do it through my own Instagram account because
Yeah.
then
We want
it
it
can't be
institutionalized.
transferred
Yeah,
to someone
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe there's someone, the computer guy who might be able to help me get around the .gov.
Yeah. Well, how
problem.
does, because I believe the building department has an Instagram page and they post to it.
Yeah, so they obviously got around it.
If they're using a work address, which I would imagine they are.
They worked that through IT, though.
Okay.
Okay, through IT. Okay, and the other thing is, I feel like there's that barrier, like some of the people, the young families see Facebook and Twitter, but a lot of them maybe don't, so we need.
We have 7,000 residences in town.
Yeah.
And, a couple of hundred people following our Facebook page.
Right.
And
We
when
need-
really it's information that everybody ought to know.
Right, so we need to
Yeah.
somehow understand, because my kids are long out of the school, so I don't know how the school newsletters work, but we need to somehow try to get the information, maybe not every post, but like some of the more important information, like when we have kit sales and so forth.
This is why, going back to the 7.2, provide effective community communications
Yeah.
is, I think, something we should look at, because we brought this up at our last meeting. Jamie did mention that, the First Selectman's Office or the Town of Darien has social media pages that if there was anything that we wanted to post through those, we can send them to Kate.
And they do retweet a lot of my
Oh, okay, they do.
tweets. Yeah.
In terms of they're all electronic newsletters.
Okay.
Usually a parent basically volunteers. There's somebody new
To
this
create
year
them,
for
yeah.
homeschool.
Okay.
And you just basically, every school gets it out on a different day. So you
Okay.
have a
Weekly.
It's a weekly thing, but some have a Monday deadline, some have a
Yeah.
Thursday deadline. It's
So there's no
unfortunate.
central, clear
No.
in-house?
No.
Yeah.
No, but
But it'd be great to put on each wire that, so they could click on it or go to the link
Yeah.
and then they could follow
Yeah, and then you
what
wouldn't
you're
have to be
doing
in
rather
there.
than getting
Yeah.
information.
If you're curious about, or if you want more
Yeah.
information on recycling in Darien, follow this page.
Like I had done something, see, it also depends on where this is coming from. Like if it's coming from the green team and we'd say, hey, let's do something, I'm gonna do something, it gets in the body of what the parents are reading. Then you
Okay.
have the community section.
Okay.
So any outside organization that wants to be a part of this and wants to get, is down below
Okay.
on what's going on in the community. So we can kind of talk about,
But it has to be, I imagine, it has to be somehow oriented towards the schools, right? Like, confused about recycling in the schools, or,
Yeah.
like,
Like
here's,
last year, we
following the
Something
DarienRecycles.com
related to
might help,
Right,
And-
last year,
and
I was
that's-
able to get the new what's in, what's out
Yeah.
in the body, so that parents would be
Oh,
like,
Oh,
oh.
good.
Oh, that's
You know what I
pretty
mean?
good.
Like, oh, this is so great, and it's like one
Simple,
of the top
clear,
things
yeah.
that they read, because it's like parents, like, they have so much to read.
Yeah.
There's, okay, Principal Coffee, this, that. Do they actually go down and
Yeah.
see what's going on this weekend in the community? Some of them do. But if we can get it up there and say, oh, this is what we're doing, water conservation is our theme, every drop counts, that's kind of, I CC'd you on that email
Yeah.
that we.
So there's
Yeah.
an outlet there.
Yes.
If fashioned correctly, and not abused. And with the other outlet, we have our outlet, but yeah, it is, how do you?
Just try to get through to as many people as possible. And then, so we can kind of talk offline about how to get in touch with.
The right people.
Identify who the responsible person in each school is.
Yes.
And then I can be in touch with them and we can hopefully figure that out. The other thing, and this suggestion came from a resident, which is, so we get asked questions periodically, either sometimes on Facebook, sometimes in person, sometimes through our email. And someone had asked, is there a central place where you sort of compile all the questions that people have asked about different things?
Great question.
So I thought we should do that. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to take all the questions that have been asked, because chances are, if someone has the question, another person might benefit from the answer as well. So I can type those up, and where would we put them, though? Would we put them on our page under, on the recycling?
You could basically do a post, and then say, here is all the, and then maybe it's on the DPW page.
And then it could be updated like quarterly or something, because, the questions are asked, it could just be added to, augmented each time. And then, sometimes it might save someone else from having to ask the question, because I get asked the same some of the questions are similar,
So,
I missed,
go
you
ahead.
get the questions via email?
Yes.
Sometimes email, sometimes
just
through
below.
private messages on Facebook, sometimes in
Just in the
response
comments
to a
section,
Facebook
yeah.
post.
Yeah.
So they come in
Okay.
different ways.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'll be back.
Great. I should get your email address at some point.
I'll get it to him.
Okay.
Darien Recycling Center, are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you should definitely follow.
So,
See, we don't even know what
Yeah,
what about, how like some websites have frequently asked questions?
Yes, that's exactly what the person was suggesting. Yeah.
On the town hall website under recycling, no?
Yeah.
Is there a
Yeah, we
section?
can do that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely should
And
be.
then I could refer people to it via post and so forth. I think it's like there's not one answer to getting the
Yes.
information out to people. It has to be a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah. And kudos to the effort that you've put into it so far.
Yeah.
I have been a follower since the beginning, and it's
I mean, I'm happy
just
to-
good information. If you're watching at home, you really should like us on Facebook, Darien Recycling Center. On
Yeah,
Facebook.
if you just put in the search Darien Recycling Center in either Twitter or Facebook,
You'll
it'll
find
come
it.
up, and I will try to work with the IT to get the Instagram going.
And it is on is it on a few signs to dump right now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it was.
Was.
It was, are those signs still there?
It's on one of the signs I made, it was permanent.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
Well, thank you very much. And so I guess the continued effort to expand our horizon, improve our communications, and then an eye towards December with figuring out how to make it known that we've achieved our certification.
Right.
All right. Anything that folks want to add for the next agenda that we didn't talk about today that you think we should be talking about?
Some of the things that we might want to ask for in the budget for next year.
Yep.
I have a couple ideas.
No, so basically, between the two meetings, if you have ideas, this doesn't have to be just now, like, hey, we should talk about this next time, or here's a great idea, or here's the two ideas that I had, just email me. I go through all my emails from the last month for the committee when I'm doing the agenda, just to see if
Okay.
there's something I missed.
The thing that got me here in the first place, I think, was how upset I was when I saw what people were putting in single stream. And that continues. And somebody had an idea the other day that I thought was terrific, that you might get the scouts to come in uniform and help people at the transfer station. And they would say, let me help you, sir or madam. Yes, you know this goes over here. They need a little bit of training to do it, but
A Saturday or something, where it's really busy,
Yeah,
and you get
yeah.
people who.
I mean, it doesn't have to be daily. On a Saturday would be fine. That's what I think most people, a lot of people go on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, well, I have a couple of thoughts. One, there's the safety side, right, and making sure that Ed is comfortable with the age and location of these individuals and that they have proper oversight, I assume, something like that. I'm involved in Scouts now. I have 2 boys in Scouts, and so I am off on a Scout camp out this weekend. So I interact a lot on all these things, and I also find that, you know, there are more ideas than there are available Scout hours, right? For like, hey, they should do this, and they should do that, and they should do this. But I think the general concept is right, and we've talked about it. We never actually did it. I did it one day when I was down there.
Yeah.
And got some angry people.
You were
but,
great.
We're basically just, you know, be the guy that stands there with a shirt on that says questions, you know, and just stay there for a couple hours, you know, and say, oh, by the way, we're not doing plastic bags anymore, and here's the list, and you know, it'd be pretty easy for us to do that for a couple hours on a Saturday, you know, and but I think that's the perfect spot.
Yeah, there was also a suggestion that because a lot of redeemable containers go in single stream, could we have a separate setup? I mean, this goes back to like, you know, additional recycling opportunities, because a lot of people just, for convenience sake, don't bother redeeming their containers, so they just throw them in single stream. So
I actually got an email from someone on that who went down to, happened to be at a transfer station in like Georgia or something, and one of the nonprofits operates kind of like a separate collection bin for the aluminum cans, and they then take that. It helps, I think in that case it actually helped out a local Scout troop, because they...
This was tied with that.
Yeah, they collected the cans, and my response was, well, adding anything like that to the transfer station, city carding would have to approve, and aluminum is like the last thing that they're actually making money on right now.
Really?
Right? And so if we take the aluminum stream away from city carding, they're probably not going to be happy. Number one. Number two, we don't want to open up our contract for negotiation for at least 2 more years.
Yeah.
Really?
I see.
Okay.
I'm starting next month.
Oh, you are? You finally got the call?
They came back, they actually want to extend it
Okay.
and keep us on the
Not paying side.
positive side of
Oh,
recycling.
Wow.
Well, that's great.
So I told them I'm more than happy to sit down and talk about an extension,
Okay.
as long as it covers my tenure here, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
But don't ever want to renegotiate
Already
this
start
again.
talking about retirement. We should have.
No. No, Ed, no.
It's way too much fun.
Yeah.
But
No one can replace
So right
you.
now,
No one can
they
retire.
said that they wanted to extend the contract while making it
No,
negative.
we're just started a very preliminary conversation about, discussion about the existing contract.
All right. Yeah, the idea was out there for someone to take advantage of those funds, but
So that's
I'm
not, separating the
suspect.
stuff isn't
Yeah.
something that we really want to include.
yeah, and well, I go back to, and I want to bring all good ideas in. Where are we going to spend our hours? Where are we going to have an impact? If that material is currently being recycled, are we happy about that, right? Do we need to change it? It's kind of like the swap shop, right? There's, from time to time, issues with the swap shop. Certain people take more than other people, and that rubs some people the wrong way. And we basically say, well, if it's being reused, we're happy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to go beyond that. So I want to focus on the big picture too, but.
On an unrelated topic,
Yeah.
I have one other thing.
Okay.
Again,
Then we're going to finish.
yeah. So October 7th,
Yeah.
the Fairfield, where are my notes on this? Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. So the Sustainable Fairfield County Group is holding they want to start food scrap composting, and so they're having the duo from Scarsdale come to give a presentation, since they sort of have set the gold standard for this. And they asked if I would come and talk as well to give a Connecticut perspective, because we have
Yeah.
some barriers that, Westchester County doesn't have. So I just wanted to mention that
Yeah,
and
that's
see
awesome.
if anyone else
Yeah.
wants to come. It's 7 o'clock.
Feel free to
It's
send out an email with the
PM.
particulars, yeah.
Pardon?
Send out an email with the particulars.
Okay, it's at Earth Place in,
Taking the road show.
Right, right, and basically just to talk about, I mean, they're going to conduct the bulk of the seminar, and I will just give like a 5-10 minute
Yeah.
presentation on like
On
what
your
our
piece of it.
experience has
Yeah,
been.
The resource council.
And then there'll be
the
questions.
Providers and, yeah.
Carolyn, is that the city of Fairfield, or that's the Sustainable Fairfield County group?
Yes.
That's the group of multiple
Yes,
towns that are
yes.
sharing ideas?
Yes, actually, the woman, Pippa, is
Yeah.
from Westport, and she's
Yeah.
trying to get a program started in Westport. And then lastly, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of our food scrap program, October 15th.
Oh.
So I think that we should just, you know, kind of do a postmortem and see, like, you know, how it's going. You know, is there anything that we think needs changing, you know? and-
Article for the paper.
Yeah,
First
actu-
anniversary, look what
Yes.
we've done.
Yeah.
This is what we recycle.
Actually, the Darien Times has sort of expressed some interest in doing that,
That'll
so.
be great.
Shall we adjourn?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Channel 79.
On October 7th?
Yes.